Today, you'll enter the world of Jasper AI, a platform that's redefining creativity for users by breaking the shackles of writer's block, creating novel content, and pushing the boundaries of art and language. Imagine a realm where your creative partner isn't a human, but an AI, meticulously designed to amplify your creative potential. This is the reality Jasper AI is crafting, standing at the vanguard of the AI revolution. In the future, marketing professionals' job openings will list under qualifications must have experience with Jasper. Who are the people behind this transformative tool? We'll speak to Shane, the president of Jasper. Shane, like many tech leaders, got his training from the Siebel Systems School of Hard Knocks. He's a battle-hardened technology leader who's seen multiple technology trends over decades. He's now pioneered the human AI paradigm, which he sees as the most important problem in Silicon Valley and the world. As we explore the ethical frontiers of AI, from safeguarding authenticity to navigating the intricate dance of intellectual property, get ready for a conversation that dares to dream about its potential in our own lives. So if you're intrigued by the promise of AI as a creative partner, or simply curious about the future of content creation, you're in the right place. Collective Nation, I'm your host, Thomas Joshi. This is your portal to the minds crafting the future. We look at the what of AI, but also the why and how it's transforming our world. Let's dive in. Welcome, Collective Nation, to another episode. And on the pod, we have Shane. Shane, please tell us about your prior work experiences, why you chose those positions, what you're most proud of, and how that led to your current work.
Yeah, thanks, Thomas. Thanks for having me on your podcast. So I guess throughout my career, I think my career was actually shaped by a next door neighbor that I had who was in tech, and he was at one of the early tech companies, actually called Scopus. It's an old CRM company. But he basically gave me this piece of advice. He said, look, there's two types of people in the world, the person that makes the product and the person that sells the product. And, those are the two areas of tech where you want to be. That's where all the action is. That's where you can have the biggest impact and have the most fun. And so I went back to college at UCSB, and I took a Fortran programming class. That was the only one that was available that late in the sign up period. I think all the good classes were all taken. So here I am in there for a couple of days, and I quickly figured out that I'm on the sales side of technology. That's where I'm the best fit, and that's where I have the most fun.
Well, if you had joined now, I mean, Fortran is notoriously a very difficult programming language. So who knows? You might have been a programmer if you joined now with some of these languages like Python and Ruby.
It was trial by fire. It was literally like, if this guy can survive this in his junior year of college, I think he'll be in good shape. So I quickly said, okay, I think on the business side, the go-to-market side of tech, that's where I want to be. And so when I graduated from college, actually before I graduated from college, my senior summer, the company that he had invested in, like his first company went public, and then he invested in this company called Computer Literacy. We'll see how old the folks are on your podcast if they remember that company. But we quickly became fatbrain.com, went public, stock went crazy. And that was kind of my entrance into the startup world, into technology. This is in 97 is when I actually first sort of worked at that company. So I've been doing this for a little while. So went on the sales side, went through an IPO, just scrappy startup every day trying to figure it out. We were literally selling books online at the same time as Amazon. So that was our sort of product, like Amazon was Amazon. So we had to sell technical books and go really deep and really sort of focus on our customers and differentiating on that customer experience. And I think that sort of indoctrination into customers and supporting them and tech just really kind of has served as the sort of catalyst for my career. So everything after that has been around the customer, around supporting them, around building technology to make their life better. And so obviously, I'll walk you through, but, ending in Jasper. So from a sales rep to, at FatBrain, I went to a company called Siebel, which a lot of you will remember.
Oh, wow.
Where I wanted to get, my MBA in technology sales. And throughout my career, I started off as a salesperson, then always got promoted. So FatBrain was a salesperson and then ended up running a sales team there. Same thing at Siebel. I wanted to see how the real companies do it. And so I went to Siebel Systems to sell CRM back in 99, I guess. And so I can't believe there's still CRM companies starting today and doing really well. But we were doing that in 99. And then from Siebel, I went to ASP, which was hosted, which was before SaaS. But I knew that was sort of the future of technology and got excited about that. So went to a a startup company there, and then went to a company called Right Now Technologies, where I was the first salesperson on the West Coast. And then by the time we went public, and then by the time we got bought by Oracle, I was running a sales team and running the sales team, and had some success there. And then from Oracle, a couple more startup companies, and then went to a company called WalkMe. Mm-hmm. And so WalkMe is a digital adoption platform. I joined when we were about 30 million. Joined as a CRO. I was there for 5 years. And then when we went public in June, which was a great milestone for WalkMe, and then found Dave and the founders at Jasper, and really just kind of fell in love with Jasper. And literally, 5 months, 6 months after we were on stage at the NASDAQ ringing the bell, jumping up and down, celebrating the WalkMe IPO, I had fell in love with sort of AI and generative AI in particular, and the ability to actually have a massive impact in our customers' lives. And so I think 10 days after I met Dave, I joined Jasper. We were a 9-person startup company that had some product market fit and some great traction, and wanted to build a real business. And so that's why I came here, and kind of the rest is history. It's been a wild run over the last 2 years.
So that's incredible. So first, maybe for my own interest, Siebel Systems. I mean, at least Thomas Siebel, Larry Ellison, they kind of go in history as some of the great software sales people of our era. I mean, were there any key lessons that you took away of how Siebel Systems was able to go to war with the 800-pound gorilla Oracle, or just maybe any broader sales lessons that you learned in that organization?
Yeah, so many lessons. I also learned a lot about culture, and just the culture that, I think for those folks that know about that, that culture, it's the culture has evolved a lot in technology for right. Where it is now from where it was. And so I think I've learned a lot of kind of how I like to build my teams and run my teams from those organizations. I actually run them quite differently, as you can probably imagine. I think the interesting thing is there were only a few competitors in the market. We all knew what you were trying to do. You were trying to replace the contact center agents, or you were not trying to replace them necessarily, but you were trying to replace an application in the contact center, replace a sales automation tool or a marketing tool. You had competitors, you were chasing after them, or they were chasing after you, but the battlescape was a lot more defined. And then it was just about ruthless execution. I think nowadays it's so different. The battlefield, especially in AI, it changes on a tweet. Yesterday, OpenAI releases a model that says they're going to release a model that's, text to video. That's a big deal, right? Or it will be in 6 or 12 months. That'll be a really big deal. So I think that was just the difference. They had the advantage of probably having a 2 or a 3 year roadmap and being able to sort of chip away at that roadmap and chip away at a lead. And, I think there was this feeling, no one ever got fired for Siebel. Remember hearing that? So I think companies wanted to buy the big incumbent's product, and they felt safer doing that. I don't think that's the case anymore. I think you now have to be better. And if you're better and you're a startup, you can often win customers' hearts, which I think was harder to do back in the day.
And how do you develop the ability to become the de facto system? I mean, Jasper has kind of become that name, at least in Silicon Valley for sure, of being the trusted partner in generative AI, but it wasn't always like that. I mean, Jasper kind of started only a few years ago. Do you have any kind of ideas of how past companies have done it and a game plan to becoming the de facto player?
Yeah, it's so simple and yet so hard to do. Follow the customer, listen to the customer, understand what the customers want, and just obsess about it. Every single day, are we getting closer to what's going to make the customer happy? And if you do that, it's a pretty easy formula. Again, it's really hard to do because people internally, they may not know about the customer. You may not have agreement about who the customer is even, right? Some people think you're building for this customer, and other people think the customer looks like something totally different. And so you need to have really tight alignment around that. But if you do, and you listen to the customer and you have smart people, hungry, aggressive, smart people, I think you're going to be in a great spot. The companies, so WalkMe was my 6th public company that I had been a part of. 3 pre-IPOs that went public, and then 3 public companies. So I've had some startups that didn't make it. The startups that didn't make it, it was all just product market fit and timing. Those were sort of, when you look back on the real challenges, I think those were the biggest challenges that we were unable to, sort of overcome. Aside from that, if you have a good team, and you listen to your customers, you're going to figure it out. You're going to figure out how to make the product that your customers are going to love. And so I think for Jasper, if you look at the sort of Jasper's life cycle, I would sort of break it up into three kind of chunks, and they're almost like three annual chunks. The first year of Jasper was really just about like outputs, and we could totally wow a customer by being able to simply create outputs for them. They have a faster blog post, a faster, whatever. We had these templates, and people would use them. They'd create content, and they almost did it like in a vacuum, almost like they didn't want to tell people at work they were using AI. Right. They were somewhat, it was like a kind of a secret that they were using a tool like Jasper. That was the first year, really. I think the second year shifted from outputs, right? This is kind of when, actually this is probably even still a year before ChatGPT, but it was shifting from simply outputs into outcomes. So people didn't care about writing a blog post. They cared about writing a good blog post. They cared about writing a blog post that actually got them, the whatever results that they were looking for, right? Or, the effectiveness piece. But it became about outcomes. And then I think this third phase is now really in the last like 6 to 12 months has been about proving those outcomes. So how do you create content that looks like me, that sounds like me, that acts like me, that is going to make my voice amplified in the market? And so that's really, I think, why people love Jasper. We're not about creating a million pieces of content that just go out and flood the web and look like spam and don't really accomplish anything except make you feel like you're doing some work. We're human-assisted AI. So for us, like, we want the human in the loop. We want to create the 60 or 80% of the base content so that you, the human, can go on top of that 80% and actually add your magic, add your value, add your creativity, and tell your story. And so I think that's why people really love Jasper. Is it's not just a piece of software. It's a lot of it's change management. A lot of it is like, how do I use a platform like Jasper across my entire marketing team now? We've gone from this like dirty secret 2 years ago to now, like, if you're a CMO, you better have an AI strategy, right? Because your board's probably asking you, what are we going to do with AI? How are we going to bring our costs down? How are we going to make ourselves more effective? How are we going to get our message amplified? How are we going to change our message on the fly and test it and see what works? And so a lot of companies are now understanding that Jasper is the partner for that, and they're coming to us to work together.
And I think, what you mentioned with the biggest sort of thing you're hearing right now in Silicon Valley is doing more with less.
Yes.
So I think that's the key reason why people are less ashamed to say they're using generative AI, is that because I also witnessed that, which is people want to look like they're superhuman at work, and so they aren't willing. It's a little bit different from software where, if I can share with my friends and we can all be on this one platform. You saw this with Yammer, which really took the consumer tactics to the enterprise because it became more valuable as your peers at work were on the platform. Whereas I think with sort of generative AI, a lot of people are they want to appear superhuman, so they're less willing to talk about it. But I think this sort of environment has been a forcing function to say, look at, like, I have a thing I can point to say I am doing more with less. Our output is way more than it has been in the prior decade.
100%. And that's the beauty of where we are, right? Like, it's less, this AI is becoming less and less of this like magic trick that people just say those two little letters and like imply this. It's now just like part of the fabric, right? It's just part of the technology that's driving efficiency. And so I think, like any technology, it's better when most technologies, it's better when you use it across your team, within your organization, across your sort of like functional partners that you work with every day throughout the organization. And so that's what we're seeing. And that's pretty new. Like, that's probably, I'd say, like in the last 6 months. 6 months ago is probably the first time I had seen large enterprise companies have an actual AI center. Lots of them say they do, right? But actually having an AI center that's partnering with each of the functional heads to understand their requirements, how they want to run their business, and how they can bring AI into that stack. Lots of people have been talking about that for a long time, but I'm now actually seeing it happen. And they'll literally go line of business, and they'll have a business partner with the marketing team, with the sales team, with the CS team, with the manufacturing team, with the distribution team. And they'll really like go then research AI applications and AI tools to bring back to those business sponsors and say, hey, we found this tool that can help you over here. It's been great for Jasper. but that's a brand new sort of function that I think just shows the evolution that we're going through quickly with AI.
Totally. So now we've kind of refined what motivates you, why you're at Jasper, what gets you fired up to be at Jasper. Let's kind of just get to know you. So we start every event, from our 200-person summits to our smaller sort of AI leader dinners, with an icebreaker to get to know people on a personal level. So, just imagine you're creating a time capsule that won't be open for 100 years. What's one item you put in that time capsule to represent your life or just our current era in general, and why?
That's a great question. Try to think of an answer that won't get me in trouble. I think actually like the real answer is probably a picture of my family. I actually have a picture screensaver on my phone here that I just love. It was like our last vacation that we went on. I mean, obviously, like that is me. That sort of defines me, and it's the thing I'm the most proud of. We have 3 boys, and my wife Courtney have been together forever. I also think in the spirit of this conversation with around AI, like it's a fascinating time in their life, and that's a snapshot. Like this is from the summer, so 6 months ago, 8 months ago, and like AI was even less prevalent in their lives 8 months ago. Now I hear them talking about using AI at school, like not using it in a bad way, like using AI in school for their lessons, for their curriculum, like to actually do schoolwork, sanctioned by teachers. So I just think that's also a fascinating, sort of time where like this AI wave hasn't really affected them yet. And in 100 years, it's crazy to think of, where they're going to be, what life's going to be like. 100 years, I might still be able to tell the story about the summer somehow. I don't know if I'll be on a chip or I'll be in their iPhone or whatever they're calling it at that point, or I might still hopefully be alive. But I think that would be really cool to show just a snapshot of like exactly what life was like, summer of 23.
And I think the funny part of what you're saying is that Charlie Munger has this quote. I don't remember the exact quote, but it's sort of interacting with how do you live a good life. It's by interacting with the imminent dead or something like that. Basically, by reading books. And you can read the books of people of kind of brilliant minds throughout history. And now with generative AI, like you can literally talk and engage with the imminent dead. You could have a conversation with Albert Einstein and go down your list by just consuming the books or papers that they produced. And then now I'm seeing a lot of startups doing voice generation, doing that in a particular tone. So that's also going to really revolutionize what it means to have a relationship with maybe your ancestor, right? If you can, have a relationship with your kids and be there to guide them when you've kind of moved on. Everything is just wonky, and then you kind of add on to that. What are kids going to do? How do they prepare for a career? And maybe in the 1970s, 80s, maybe you thought about engineering. Maybe in the 90s, 2000s, maybe you thought about finance. Maybe in the 2010s, you thought about computer science. Do you study AI and electrical engineering if they're really going to be supercharging your workflow no matter what you do? And so I think, thinking about how academic institutions can really prepare their students is something I'm trying to grapple with, and I think institutions around the world are also thinking about as well.
Yeah, I think 2 things on that. One, like, and also, how long are people going to live? Like, who's the last human that's going to die? What does die mean? Like, I think there are a lot of really interesting advancements that could happen with AI as we can quickly find cures and quickly break apart your DNA and put it all back together. So I think that's going to be fascinating for me. I think that you touch on a really great point about sort of AI in school, and just seeing the transition of even how schools are approaching AI, and they're like, some are the good ones, I would hope, are sort of engaging with AI and bringing it into the classroom. That's been an incredible sort of journey that I've been on too over the last. I've been at Jasper for a little bit over 2 years, but when I was telling our kids go to the same school here in Marin, and so when I would talk to the teachers about Jasper, pre-ChatGPT, right? So 2 years ago, and show them the technology, they were totally blown away and terrified about it. And this kid's gonna be able to write a 1-page paper without actually doing any work. And The transition that I've seen there, like, yeah, so don't have them write a one-page paper that I hated in school, that you hated in school, that they hate writing in school. It doesn't actually show that they know the knowledge. It just shows that they can write a one-page paper, which in 10 years or 15 years might not be as important. But like knowing about the subject and engaging in the subject and being moved by the subject is the whole point of being in school. And so I think it's like actually an opportunity and responsibility for teachers to get better and teachers to get more engaged and really sort of use these tools to help expand the minds of our students and get them excited about the subjects. And so I've seen them go from this like fear into this adoption, and like kids are now using in their school are using AI to do research and to study and to learn about projects and come up with ideas on how they can, sort of show their knowledge to the class and what types of projects they can do. And it'd just be such a more fun time to be a student as well. And so I'm glad to see it's still unknown, and lots of educators are still wrestling with what to do with AI, but it's great to see the progress that we're making on that side as well.
Yeah, and I think also to add an additional point to what you were kind of stating is that people did this with calculators, right? So a lot of teachers will say don't use a calculator, but I think at least from what I've seen now, that kind of notion has kind of gone away, where people are like, okay, like you're gonna use Excel, you're gonna use Python, you're gonna use MATLAB when you're a professional. It doesn't really. You're kind of. It's better to master those tools than to think about doing mental math in your head. It's going to be even better probably to just use a generative AI tool and be able to master that and be a craftsman with that tool, as opposed to trying to handwrite a book in earlier decades. So maybe let's transition to the AI portion and talk about your experience in AI. And you have very unique insights. So maybe to kind of ground that conversation, can you share just a moment of failure or a challenge in your career that has profoundly impacted your leadership philosophy and approach to AI and innovation in general at Jasper?
Yeah, sure. And I've got plenty. I think the biggest one was so throughout my career, I've gone from a sales rep to kind of head of sales to a president or whatever it is, but I've sort of gotten accidentally promoted, accidentally by me. Like I didn't really necessarily want to be in that other role. It just happened to be that I was pretty decent at it and could have a bigger impact in the org. And so got the opportunity and then sort of always did well. I think my first time though, second time getting promoted, this is when I was at Right Now Technologies. I was there for 8 years. And so Right Now I was actually the top rep, then became a sales manager, hated it, was horrible at it, then became a rep again because I'm like, why am I working harder, making less money? I just want to be a rep. And then got promoted again into a VP of sales, and then ended up, kind of running that sales team. But the second time when I tried to become a manager, I think like I didn't really understand how to be a good leader, how to be an efficient, sort of motivator of the troops, and how to actually get it done by leading as opposed to just doing. Like end of the month or end of the quarter, stress would kick in. I knew how to get the deal done, right? I could tell you exactly what you needed to do to show the customer how we're going to implement it to make sure the IT is happy and to make sure that their business champions and CFO are happy. But the reps weren't doing it, and I would just want to take the ball, right? And I would want to shoot it. And so it was really frustrating for me, really frustrating for my team, I'm sure some of them left because of me. And then I went back in sales. And then I think having a kid, my first kid, Brody, so this is 16 years ago, having my first kid, Brody, and then seeing the world through his eyes and quickly figuring out, like, I can't just tell him what to do. It has to be his idea. And, like, sort of broken bones and skin knees. Like, I have to let him fall and I have to let him get that experience. But if it's something really big, then you jump in. And so I think once I had Brody, I actually wanted to go back into management and try some of these new things in this sort of new approach, and I was like much better at it, right? It was like everything was unlocked. And so I think that was probably the epiphany, is just how to be a good leader and how to like set a vision, how to align and make sure everybody understands that vision and that everybody's running towards the vision, but then trying not to get in the way, right? And I'm sort of the guardrails, making sure that everybody is focused on that and sort of going in the right direction, but trying not to slow it down. And then the biggest thing is like obviously hiring the right people, in order for that management sort of style to work. But yeah, that was probably the biggest, like most humbling setback. That was probably the first time in my professional career where it didn't work. I still crushed the number, and we still did really well, and we still, like, on paper looked really good, but, like, you just know it's not right in your heart. But that was pretty humbling to have to go back and figure that out again.
So, this is something that I am super interested in. So one component, let's take this piece by piece. So moving up the sales organization, I find that a lot of people struggle to do that because there is no, oftentimes there is no playbook of people teaching you how to move up within the sales organization, especially as the sales organization scales out. So, it's easy to say, maybe I can manage, maybe a few people, but then how do you, become a head of sales? How do you structure a sales team? Then thinking about how to go after different types of customers, and maybe you weren't trained to do this. Maybe you started off as sort of in the field. Like, how did you develop that know-how? Because there's not a lot of people going around teaching this stuff, especially if you're kind of making your way up. I think that's why you see in a lot of tech companies, once you become head of sales, it's very easy to kind of move from company to company because you develop that skill set that's very unique and very differentiated from a kind of more in the field.
Yeah, totally. So I think throughout my career, I've been really fortunate to have great mentors. So the next door neighbor that I was talking about before that literally changed the course of my life, I was supposed to be, my father's an attorney. Like, that was just kind of the thing you did. You went to high school, you went to college, you went to law school, you became an attorney. Like, that was, for my whole life, that's kind of how I thought life would go. And, he changed my life that night when he talked about tech and, selling and building. And his name's Dave Schwab. He's still, he's a VC in the tech community. He's done really well. But I've always had these mentors throughout my career to sort of help guide me. So it's a great question. When I left, because right now I was the head of sales, but I also worked with great sales leaders, Marcus Bragg and Mike Saraceni and other people that helped with the playbook. And so I was sort of implementing their playbook. But then when I became a CRO for the first time, it had to be my playbook. And I had to figure it out. And I had to hire the right people and set the right productivity models and understand how to, work with the board and how to forecast numbers. And so I was very fortunate to get to work with a guy named John McMahon. So lots of people probably on this podcast are nodding right now saying, he's a legend. And he really is. So the first piece of advice I would say is, like, seek out somebody that's been there before. Be totally comfortable being vulnerable. Ask a million questions. Like, the people in the John McMahon role in that world, they're all about giving back. They're all about helping. I'm the same way. Reach out to me. I love doing this. I love paying it back. But, I think if you go in with the right attitude and you ask the right questions, you'll find a ton of people that'll help you. That's the only way. Like, I remember trying to figure out, how do you set the number for this year? And the number's going from 10 million to 30 million to 100 million, right? How do I even set that number when I don't even know what my pipeline looks like? Or how many sales reps do I hire? Or what do the sales reps look like? What types of, this person was at Oracle for 10 years. Is that a good thing or a bad thing, right? It depends. And so that was tough. I remember my first board meeting when I had just started at a company, Contingent, that I just joined after Oracle, and it was like it was going to be a horrible board meeting. The numbers weren't right and they weren't real, and I had been there for like 4 weeks, and now I'm digging in and like, what do I tell the board? And I remember calling John McMahon, walking into the board meeting. He goes, "You tell them the truth. You tell them exactly where you are. You tell them exactly where you see the problems. You tell them exactly what you're working on, and you ask them for help." And it's like, oh, yes. It seems really common sense, right? But if you're doing it for the first time, it's scary and you just don't know. And so, if you're lucky enough to get to work with people like that, they'll just set you straight, and that lives with you for your whole career. And that's the biggest thing, is just ask for help. But it is tough, because somebody else did it. And the other nuance is you don't really see what they did. Like, oftentimes, it's easy to criticize the, executives or the people running these teams, but you don't know all the work that they're doing behind the scenes, and you just sort of take it for granted. That now falls on you. You can't just complain about stuff. Like, you got to go fix it. You got to figure it out. You've got to, go make it happen.
Right. And I think, this is very helpful for people who are building out their AI teams, because a lot of people in Silicon Valley have that engineering background, but they need to scale out the sales organization, especially if they're going B2B. And so learning how to find mentors to get you to where you need to be is a critical step. So considering your extensive experience in leading tech companies before Jasper, how has your perspective on the AI human relationship evolved? So what do you believe is the ultimate potential of that collaboration? Is it a replacement? Is it a sort of synergy of working together? What does it look like long term?
Yeah. It's a great question. I don't know. I don't really subscribe to the scary AI taking over the world, and like that could happen, but so could nuclear, or so could anything, right? Like there's a million asteroid could hit Earth, and like who knows, right? So, and I know lots of people are focused on making sure that doesn't happen, and that's great. I mean, for me, AI is more of just a productivity tool. It's just a piece of technology, a really good one, a really powerful one. But and we're in this sort of creativity phase of AI, and we'll move into a legislation and the security piece of it, and that'll quickly follow. And I think that'll take care of itself on the really scary side. I think on the evolution of AI in my world, it's gone from just like a toy, a parlor trick. Hey, watch, I'm going to write a blog. Tell me anything you want, and like we're going to create a paragraph about that topic, and it's going to sound real. It might not be, right? There may be hallucinations, but it's going to sound really convincing. That was kind of the first act. That was a couple. Actually, the first act is that it didn't work. Like the first act, like for a long time, is that it's a really cool idea.
I agree.
And then, like, because it didn't work, you called it ML instead of AI, and you called it all these other things.
As someone who built these systems, I can tell you it did not work. Yeah.
Like it didn't work. Like I remember, I'm still an advisor to a company called Digital Genius, and this is like 5-6 years ago probably. And it was genius, like it really was. It's AI in the contact center, and it was going to help with agents, and it was going to do all this amazing stuff. But it was just really hard. Like we didn't have the infrastructure and the technology to make it work. We had really smart people working on those problems, and we would get some of the answers right. And we did add value to our customers, but yet it wasn't perfect. It's a lot better now, right? But you can imagine what a contact center AI tool looked like 5 or 6 years ago. It was hard to do. So I think that's the first sort of version. I think once ChatGPT came out, or not ChatGPT, but GPT-3 came out, 3.5 came out, then all of a sudden we actually had a model that worked, and you could ask it a question and you could get outputs. But that was that second phase, is like outputs. But then I think it quickly became about personalized outputs, right? We talked about this before. It's not enough to just have a paragraph that sounds okay. It's got to be real, without hallucinations. It needs to look like you. It needs to sound like you. It needs to be something that is going to make your life better, not something that you're just going to have to rewrite 80% of, which at that point you might as well just write it yourself, like once that novelty's worn off. And I think we got there. I think this next evolution of AI is really around agents that'll do stuff for you, do tasks for you. Pretty excited about this, actually. And so I think we're in that phase now, and that's that kind of human AI relationship where it'll just become a really effective productivity tool that's going to help give you a digital assistant, or give you some support there. This is in the personal sort of life. And then I think the next version of that will be automating tasks and just basically doing things that you don't want to do that'll make your life easier behind the scenes. That's probably the majority of what AI is going to do. I also think on the healthcare side, it's incredible. The progress we're going to make there, the knowledge, the individual, like the personalized sort of knowledge it's going to give us even about our own, biology and our own healthcare. And I think that'll be, I think that's going to be amazing. Those are probably the biggest areas that I see sort of AI in the kind of human world coming together. There's the sci-fi stuff, the her stuff, and the relationships. And I think that's for those people that are interested in that and need the companionship. And you can think of like older people, and like, I think that's, really amazing on some levels. But yeah, I think that's kind of how AI, it's just going to become part of our life. It's just going to become ubiquitous with technology, right? And technology is just going to be aided by AI and make things better.
No, and I totally agree with. I really resonate with your point on just it just works because I studied AI and electrical engineering with the thought that for the rest of my life I'd have to understand build specialized hardware in order to optimize the application layer. I would need to sort of fine tune a model on a bunch of different on distributed architecture, and now like there are still use cases for that where there's specialized use cases where you need to do that. But I think we've actually gotten to the point where you can just use an API, and there's obviously RAG and a whole bunch of other techniques that you can do to kind of get the model to work. But I remember you mentioned healthcare. I worked as an ML engineer on healthcare. It's a conversational AI company, and with that, not only was it it's very difficult to get the AI to work, but it's also a sales a problem. So selling into the hospital, selling into a health organization is really the biggest barrier. We've had a lot of techniques that have been honed and crafted over 20, 30 years, but it's really breaking down the bridge of getting into the organization and finding the right decision maker. So I also think that's another reason why your background is so interesting and so fascinating.
Think of like, how long have we been talking about digital health records? And
Right.
I'm like fascinated now that I can actually log into a site and see an X-ray that I just took.
Right.
After 25 years? Like, that's embarrassing. It's ridiculous that's as far as we've made it in 25 years, because it's hard. There are tons of regulations, there's tons of challenges, but like anything, I think we'll figure that out, and it's going to get things are going to move faster and get better. And I do think the regulation, the security, the safety, that stuff will get worked out. Maybe Sam gets his chips. Maybe we figure out alternative power like that can power enough of these, whatever we're going to call them at the time, not the H100s, but whatever the next 10 versions later will be. But, I know even if that doesn't happen, I'm seeing things come back to fundamentals, like coming back to supporting customers and adding value and, making people happier. And that's what I get excited about, in this AI space. It got really noisy for a while, didn't it?
Right. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So then reflecting on your experience with kind of digital adoption with WalkMe and Jasper, how can you talk to the human resistance to technological change?
Yeah.
So, with healthcare, if you come to doctors and you say, we're going to replace your job, don't worry, we'll do the job for you. Doctors are like, no, I think I can do the medical transcription, thank you very much. You don't need to do my job for me. I can do the diagnostics. Like, can you talk to that human resistance element?
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? Resistance is tough. I was talking to the head of AI for the largest, or one of the largest health chains in the world, yesterday, actually, and we were talking about how hard it is to get doctors to use this because they think they're going to be replaced, when it's silly. It's like, no, but you're trying to maximize the amount of clients or patients you can see in a day to make more money. Like, why wouldn't you want some technology to be able to ask questions that you might not think about, because you're only going to spend 10 minutes with this person, or diagnose where they are, or what can help them and deliver a better experience. And so I think it's the change management is always the hardest, is getting people to really understand how this is going to help them and not threaten them. I mean, I talked a little bit about this, but when I went from, this is when I left Right Now Technologies, I went to a company called Triactive. And so we were, we wanted to be the ASP for Remedy, Peregrine, Tivoli, whatever, right? Mm-hmm. So think of I think we were calling it ASP, and then it was hosted. This was like way before SaaS, right? But imagine trying to sell a ASP version of a systems management tool to a director of IT.
Right.
Like, there may be a couple people on the podcast that just followed me on this and are laughing right now, because like the director of IT was terrified about some hosted software application security. What happens if this happens? What happens if the cloud goes down? What happens if but really they were just afraid about getting fired. Right. And so since then it was, ServiceNow, like all these massive companies that just had the right product market fit and the right timing, but like mostly timing, because we were trying to do like systems management and server monitoring, which is, PagerDuty and all these other companies. Like all these multi-billion-dollar companies have been sort of started by literally what we were trying to do, is help desk, server monitoring, asset management, and like this micro agent that would like look at software utilization.
That's unbelievable.
Like genius. Like it was such a great idea. 2003 was absolutely the wrong time to go try to sell a solution that did all of that as one little agent on a desktop. So I think some of it is just you can't get around timing. Like these markets move at the pace that they're going to move. Right. But being on the go-to-market side, it's kind of our job to help people understand technology, feel comfortable with it, like usher in that change management and try to move up those adoption curves. So at WalkMe, that's kind of what we did. It's a digital adoption platform. People didn't want to learn new technologies. They didn't want to take the time to figure out how to use them. So WalkMe literally guided you through that journey as a sales rep or anybody using technology. It would just guide you through the steps that you needed to use the technology. We're seeing this a lot in AI. In fact, I was on a call 2 days ago with one of the largest publishers in the world. We're going to roll Jasper out to up to 1,000 people within their organization. They're not worried about the technology. They're not worried about AI. They're not worried about the value it's going to provide. They're not worried about ROI at all. They're worried about the change management and not worried, but their focus of our conversations is all about change management. How are we going to bring their authors and their editors onto the platform? How are we going to show them what it does? How are we going to make them feel comfortable with AI? And like, how are we going to get them to use it the first time? Because once they use it the first time, they're hooked. There's no going back, right? Like, they're so excited, they're going to love it. But it's a question of like, how do we break through and get them to use it for the first time? So I do think that is the biggest challenge. But I'll tell you that the software has to work, the tool has to work, because it's hard enough to get them to use it the first time, and maybe you get lucky on the second, you probably don't get lucky on the third. So if you're not really focused on that, you're probably not going to be as effective.
And I think that's what happened with cloud as well. I mean, yes, people remember that the era where people thought it was unsafe, but also there was a component of latency, there was a component of downtime that used to have with kind of cloud technology. So at least we don't kind of bump up against it as much. And so I think that's why another reason why you've seen not just the acceptance of kind of cloud as safe, but also cloud as secure and reliable. So in the era of AI is making this incredibly capable of mimicking human intelligence, how does Jasper think about the dilemma between these advancements and then also thinking about authenticity, intellectual property? We do a lot of engagements with Stanford Law, and the reason we do that is because you want to keep a legal framework in place as you're building and as you're selling the software. Curious to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, so for us, if you think of Jasper, we're this application layer sitting on top of models. So we have our own models. We use our own fine-tuned models to like do different use cases, right? So for us, it's all about just providing the right output to the customers. So we are in sort of a fortunate position that we get to choose the model providers that we like, that we feel have our same values. And so for us, we have a code of ethics. Actually, anybody can download our code of ethics, our AI code of ethics on our website. You can please feel free to adopt it. Please feel free to use it internally as your own. Like, you can change it, you can use it, whatever you want. We're happy to talk to you about it. But we feel like the responsibility falls on us. The responsibility falls on our model providers. The responsibility falls on our customers. That's kind of how we think things are going to get done. For sure, it falls on legislators and other governing bodies, but like, they're probably going to be slower than we are. So we've taken the sort of approach of like, let's outline how we think responsible, ethical usage of AI should be, and let's run with it. There are laws that make sense: piracy, libel, like those things are there. Copyright are there for a reason, and AI shouldn't be a loophole to get around those things. So if your tools are doing those and breaking those laws, like, you should be responsible for them. I do firmly believe in that. But I just think AI is moving so fast, it's impossible to try to create a law for every scenario. So that's kind of how we're approaching it. And so we have a committee that's really focused on ethics and fair usage. And, we work with our model providers to do that. We work with our customers to do that. But that's been the most effective thing for us. We don't want to wait, for legislature to come out with their, sort of AI rules. And we don't think it's going to move fast enough. We're supporters of that. The only thing we ask and hope for is that it just keeps things competitive for startup companies, and that it's not, regulated so tightly that startups can't, have an impact and make a difference. I mean, look, OpenAI was a startup company a year ago, right? That's it. Just a year and a half ago, they were a startup company. And they had a pretty big impact in this whole AI thing. So we do think that, startups are doing a great job and that needs to be protected. But a lot of it is self-governance. And we're seeing that, like our customers, we're now dealing with mostly enterprise companies. They're bringing us in to advise them on how they should think about AI and what their policies should be. And we're working with their legal teams and their security and trust teams. And it's exciting.
And I think you see that in every industry where the birth of shipping, birth of oil, typically the startup companies will form some sort of group and figure it out, and just pray that the government doesn't basically create regulatory capture and sort of crush competition.
Just don't mess it up.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Like, we're working together. Can you just don't mess it up?
There are only 3 AI companies in the world.
Right.
That would be sad.
Yeah. So I mean,
even if you wanted the 3, it would still be sad. I think there's just so much opportunity here.
Right, and also it's great for the end customer, for businesses, for consumers to have competition and also for the product quality as well. But you mentioned using different model providers. And something that we work on at Stanford DSP is our belief is that you should be able to kind of cover up whatever language model you're using underneath the hood, and we think of ourselves as a kind of compiler to do question answering, so you don't have to worry about the model underneath the hood, and we'll fine tune your models for you if you need that. And so I totally believe in this idea that the future is modular, where the language model you use you shouldn't be asking what language model you use under the hood. It should just be, it just works. It's kind of like someone asking like, what chip do you use, or
Exactly.
et cetera. So I mean, can you talk about how Jasper thinks about which model providers to bet on and what the future is going to look like, and how do you develop that into your tech stack?
Yeah. So there's the high level part, and then there's the sort of tactical, right? So high level, we're partnering with the large ones, right? So the ones that are getting funding, that are investing in their models, that are investing in sort of the success of that. By the way, I totally agree with everything that you said. I don't care which chips are in my phone. I just care that it works and it's better and it's faster, or that the camera's better, or whatever. And that's our philosophy. That's why we built this. We call it the Jasper AI engine. That's basically sitting on top of these models. So depending on which use case, we'll use different models. So first of all, like, you have to be an ethical partner to get into our sort of program. And then once you're in, then we do real testing. And so we've got a pretty significant group, because we have been doing this for a while, that's literally testing all these models, and we get early access, as you can imagine, to all the latest models before anyone else. So by the time it gets live, like, we've already tested it, we've already run it through a million scenarios, we already know which use cases it's strong on or where it isn't. And then each model does provide different things. So maybe like a constitutional model is most effective, and we use Claude, right, from Anthropic. Or maybe we'll use stability for images, or maybe we'll use Cohere, or maybe we'll use OpenAI. Again, like our own models, like product descriptions, our own fine-tuned smaller models actually outperform those models for product descriptions. So if we have a large retailer trying to do lots of product descriptions, we might use our own models. And so it just really depends on the use case, because to your point, VMware doesn't care which models we're using. They care that their 600 marketers can create content that looks and feels and sounds like them, and can do it collaboratively across their whole entire team. Like, that's what they're paying us for, right? And that's what we're obsessing about. And that's kind of a unique position that we're in as an application layer within AI. Like, we don't have to go raise $4 billion to go train our models, and we can focus all of our energy just on making our customers successful and happy. And so I think the other thing on multimodal, it's not just about texts. We saw yesterday, right? It's
Right.
about images, it's about video, it's about voice, it's about all these different things that you should be able to do to tell your story. And so for us, we are an applied AI company for marketers. That's really our core sort of value, is this applied AI layer that we can provide to marketing teams to create better content. Now, lots of marketing teams love the fact that their brand is actually amplified and it's protected and it looks like the company and sounds like the company. So they want the sales team to use it. They want the CS team to use it. They want these other groups, and they'll bring us into those other groups. But our beachhead is 99% of the time in the marketing work. And so if you think of how marketers are telling a story, it isn't just text. It's also image, right? It's also video. And so for us, you want to create a piece of content, and with Jasper, you can insert the images. You can have, Jasper will even recommend, put an image here, and it knows what you're talking about, so it knows what types of image that you might want to insert and how you can, sort of fine tune that image. But this is where we're seeing the biggest value for our customers right now, is being able to just sort of focus on the outcomes, not the models, not the inputs, not prompt engineering, not the fine tuning. Customers don't care about or want to do any of that.
Right.
They just want to work, right? They want to work better and smarter and faster, and that's kind of where we excel.
And I felt a little bit of this as, I preferred ML engineering over ML research. ML research is really the PhDs who want to tweak and design models. And I actually, instead of focusing on that, I love ML engineering, which is just, lay out a bunch of models, a bunch of techniques, which one works, which one has the highest accuracy, lowest latency, which one scales, because you can go with the large model, but it might have, be very slow. So I love just that whatever is going to get the job done mentality, and I think some of the application AI layer companies can also have that mentality as well.
That's been our secret sauce. So the secret sauce is that we have a full team of tinkerers that just love this, right? They just get genuinely excited about, playing with models and figuring out where they break and providing feedback to the model companies. And if we have some of our model partners on here, they're probably laughing because they know the Slack messages that they get from our team. Like, we're finding stuff that they don't even notice, right? And we're working with them like way before it's GA and helping give them advice and making their models better. Like, it's just, we kind of geek out on it.
Right.
You know?
So
like, two things we geek out on. We geek out on that, and we geek out on marketing. Like, in general, like, we love marketers. We are marketers, and so for us, like, being able to help marketers and provide the model, it's just like we're in the perfect space. That's the other advice that I'd give anybody that's thinking of a company to start, is like, pick something that you're passionate about. Don't chase it because it's a good idea, or you think you can make money, or you think there's an opportunity. Like, I have a whole notes thing in my iPhone of like AI companies you could start and make a lot of money. But you got to pick the ones that you're just really deeply passionate about, that are solving a problem that you personally understand and have and know. And if you do that and you focus on the customers, like, you're going to build an amazing business.
Exactly. I mean, and just to wrap up this idea, it's like the first thing we talked about when we started this podcast is who are we serving with it? And because we think at first a lot of people were saying, okay, like, well, we have this platform, what should we do? No, it's like, no. Who? Then what? Right? Then what are you going to deliver to that person? Because that kind of hones in the value proposition that you can bring to people.
And it's more fun. It's more authentic. It's more interesting. It's more engaging. Like, and other people may just be curious and come and go, but, it's just more, I don't know, that's the beauty of technology. And I feel like we've gotten away from that. Like, the community part of the technologists, like, it got boring for a while. We had the web, that was awesome. We had mobile, that was like, okay, it happened slowly. We had, the whole shift to cloud, that was super boring, especially after like 2 years. But like, this now is actually interesting again, and it's fun, and it's like, it's exciting again.
Right. And I mean, and speaking of which, I mean, that this transition that you talked about, there's another transition which is kind of an end that Jasper's making, is this recent end-to-end AI co-pilot for marketing teams.
Yes.
So co-pilots seem to be everywhere right now. It can be very difficult to implement and take a lot of time for some people. Like, what does this mean for Jasper, and how is your offering different from other co-pilots in the market?
Yeah, I'm just pushing my next call, so sorry. Okay, so I think that's a great question. Everybody's calling everything a co-pilot, right? That's kind of the word. For us, it just made sense to be a co-pilot because that's kind of what we're doing. Like, we do envision Jasper as flying alongside the users. And so Jasper's early life was just literally an application. You would go into Jasper, you'd cut whatever output you wanted and paste it into the tools that you're working in. And then we quickly figured out that that's not what people want to do. They want to use Jasper in line with the other tools that they're using. And so, we have an extension, but we also have deep partnerships with a lot of the tools that people are using every day. So like Webflow, for example, if you're creating content for the website, you can do that in Webflow. You can use Jasper and you can just publish it live. You don't have to go through all these different tools. And so for us, that is truly what Jasper is a co-pilot. The other thing is that we're now, because it's become more mainstream, I think, because people are understanding the value of AI, because it's an executive level conversation, we're now having CMOs who are looking for a platform they can use across their entire marketing team. And that's really, truly what we're building. Like, if you think of actually being a CMO in a big company and trying to deal with content, there's no one further from the actual content that's being shown to customers than the CMO. But the CMO is the best marketer on the team, probably,
right,
and should probably have the biggest voice, or the loudest voice at least, around what content's displayed and when and how and what. And there really isn't a great way to do that. You have tools where you can see the effectiveness of content. Right. You can go into like a HubSpot and you can see how your campaigns performed and which campaigns are best. But like, can you actually drill down and see the actual content presented to that user? Or even like completing the sort of journey from that piece of content shown to a user into a website visit, into a lead, into a BDR call, into a sales call, into a demo, and like that whole flow. You can't really track it easily. Especially with content where outside agencies are creating it, tons of people on your team are creating it. It's a really complex problem. And so for us, like, being able to have a co-pilot where you can manage that whole sort of process, you can change themes on a dime. Yesterday was about better. Now our theme and our messaging is about faster, and you can rewrite all your content like almost instantly. You can distribute it out to those people that are responsible for like actually writing the content and show them, hey, here's your content with the new messaging. How does it sound? Put your, secret sauce on top of there and let's publish it live. And oh yeah, by the way, let's also test the effectiveness of that content and see if it's outperforming the last message, or, multivariate testing. Like, that's powerful for our customers. So that to us is what a co-pilot is. If you're a co-pilot, right? If you're a company and you're calling your co-pilot like a wrapper on top of a model, yeah, you're probably gonna get left behind. And I think we realized that pretty quickly. Lucky for us, like, if we were going to build a lasting, meaningful business, we had to deeply solve our customers' problems. And so that's the company that we built. But that's why we call it a co-pilot.
Got it. Okay.
What do you think? Does this sound like a co-pilot?
I think it definitely does. I think co-pilots are going to be really focused in on people who are specialized co-pilots. So for particular professions, I think there will be, just in the same way that, legal people will use the Word, finance people will use Excel, engineers use, a whole suite of different IDEs. Like, the same thing will happen in other sort of professions, where it's like, I'm certain that, like, if you're a marketing professional, there'll be, in the qualifications, it'll say, like, must be Jasper proficient, or something like that moving forward. I'm sure you'd love that.
I put that quote on my. I'm going to put that quote. If you can put my quotes on your website, I'll put that on mine.
Got it. Yeah.
In the future, you won't get a job unless you're an AI or you're a Jasper certified.
10 years of AI of Jasper, except starting today, right?
Exactly. But in all seriousness, like, people have on their LinkedIn that they're Jasper certified. Like, literally, people are putting that on there. They're going through our certification programs. They're getting jobs. Like, quite literally, they're getting jobs because, in fact, I was actually just talking to somebody yesterday about a program that we're going to do for colleges, where we're going to help students get certified to be a Jasper admin, and, like, that'll help them get their first marketing jobs, right? That you'll instantly know they can come in and add value, or they can start their own businesses, or, whatever they want to do. So I definitely think that that's it's a really exciting time to be a Jasper and to be an AI. And I think the other sort of next version of this, like, we don't want to go too far into automation, but we do want to be able to suggest, like, SEO, we do want to be able to make recommendations and then prove back to the customers those results. So again, we do feel like that's kind of the sort of instrument panel, co-pilot, whatever you want to call it. But that's the platform we're building.
Well, I mean, let me know if you get into, how deeply you get into the SEO, social media world, because that is just, there's a lot of companies who are doing that by hand, manually, and that's a huge market that touches every single industry. So 100%. Potential huge opportunity for Jasper. So,
and it's evolving, right? So as the rankings all change, that's why companies love us, because, like, we're right on we're the reason they're changing, and so we're able to sort of help out and stay ahead of these things.
And to add to that, at some point Jasper will likely be the one sort of changing the direction of the industry, because if right now it's a wide range of different types of marketing folks. If Jasper is plugged into all of these folks' workflows, Jasper has an influence on how SEO is done all around the world, and then you become an industry leader who kind of sets the direction of an entire industry, which is a really exciting vision for Jasper. So final question: what is the AI industry going to look like in 1 year for both marketing professionals? But if you have any hot takes on the world at large, I'd love to hear them as well.
Gosh, I'll tell you what it looked like a year ago.
Yeah.
And then we'll, like, go from there. So we were talking about this. So was yesterday Valentine's Day? I should probably know these things. 2 days ago was Valentine's Day. That's the speed of AI, right? I can't tell if it's feels like one long day or a year every day. So 2 days ago was Valentine's Day. A year ago on Valentine's Day, Jasper held our first, the first generative AI conference ever in the world. GenAI, remember that?
Right.
We were like this tiny little startup company that had this crazy weird idea that, like, in 60 days from now, let's have this conference. And we had 1,000 or 1,200 people show up in San Francisco for this Gen AI conference. And people are like, oh my gosh, this is so crazy. Like, we've been talking about Gen AI. We don't know what it means, but, like, to see everybody in one place where everybody's talking about AI and knows about it and, like, actually has a perspective, that was only 1 year ago.
Right.
Like, I'll tell you, my time at Siebel seems like it was closer than that event was. Like, just how much we've gone through in the last year, and now we're here. In fact, like everybody's like, that was the most amazing event. Like, let's do it again next year. And we're like, well, I kind of think by next year it won't be that big of a thing. Like, there will be many conferences and it won't actually have the impact. So let's not even do it. So I think a year from now, I think people will be talking less about AI and more just about the technology. And the technology will have some AI in there. It'll have some, it'll just be sort of like just part of the underlying fabric as opposed to a thing. I think we'll see a lot of these companies that got funded on a deck because they had some idea and some angle for AI. I think a lot of those companies will probably start to disappear if they're not able to get traction with customers and, build real businesses. And so either that they'll have cool tech that'll get sort of sucked into companies like Jasper and, or into the larger incumbents. But I think there'll be a lot less noise in the market. And I think the technology will be much more agent focused, where you just have tasks that need to get done, and either you're telling the system to do it or it's doing it for you, which would be even better. And then I do think there will be some like either industry or function specific agents. So like I would love a doctor and like a co-pilot for doctors. When they walk into their appointment, they have this co-pilot that gives them a idea of, we're not building this, but I hope somebody does, right? That can actually help them with their patients so they're not starting fresh, right? Or somebody comes in the emergency room and there's an AI co-pilot that can help the team there understand who that customer is and have all their information and provide better healthcare or better support. I also think hopefully on mental health and just healthcare in general, like I'm excited for an AI company to build like real true co-pilot, even for people that can't get access to support. That's where I hope AI is in a year from now. It's like focus more on the mission and less about just making money, and people just chasing companies because they think they can sort of build a company and make some money. I hope they're solving like problems they care about.
Well, and I think also a key component to that is that the tools aren't built yet, right? So a lot of the tools weren't built yet, and now we're in a phase now where a lot, at least a lot of the companies have been started, and so once the infrastructure layer has been built, then we can see a lot more application companies that are going to come to the fray and have sales teams built around that. And I think a lot of that stuff is it's so brand new that the tools are just being built. So hopefully we see a lot more of that as you kind of speak to.
Yeah, I feel like 6 months. Like I feel like in the next 6 months there will be that. Like the technology won't be a challenge. It'll be the idea and then the execution.
Right.
That's where I get excited. Yeah.
Well, Shane, thank you so much for joining. Collective Nation, thank you so much for listening. As we wrap up another episode of the podcast, I want to express my gratitude to our guest Shane and to you, our curious and passionate listener. Today's discussion has once again illuminated the terrain of AI, offering us a rare glimpse into the minds shaping the field. As always, we're building the podcast with the GenAICollective community, so please reach out with any feedback or suggestions. If you'd like to be a guest in the podcast, please get in touch with us. The details for doing so will be in the show notes or podcast description. And if you enjoyed this episode and would like to support the Collective Intelligence Community podcast, please leave a review, comment on your favorite podcast platform. Thank you for being a part of this journey. And until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning.